Welcome folks, it is Jafer, and just when I thought the custom keyboard scene was just going to kind of take over all of gaming, out comes Wooting 2HE. It is a full-size keyboard, yes, a full-size keyboard in 2021, but it is a full analog option. Let's take a look and see why I think that if you're going to be competitive in your game of choice, you need this keyboard. Hitting your wallet at 175 USD or Euro, you have the option of getting it bare bones with its braided cable and usual tools that come with other keyboards, or for $10 or $20 more, you can throw in an ABS or PBT keycap set. Definitely opt for the PBT set unless you already have one of a set of your own at home that you're looking to use. The Wooting 2HE is an analog keyboard, allowing you to adjust the actuation point from all the way down to 4.0 millimeter to all the way up to 0.01. These Leica switches in partnership with Wooting and Gateron are much faster than the SteelSeries OmniPoint switch, which were also made by Gateron. Having such a low input speed benefits you the most in those fast-paced first-person shooters or your racing sims and so much more. You can also adjust each individual switch so you don't accidentally fat finger any key that isn't used as much by increasing the actuation point. For instance, if you're heavy with your hand on the keyboard, increase the spacebar switch so it's not mistakenly pressed. Which honestly, I even mentioned in my review back when the Huntsman Mini came out. It is hypersensitive to type on those keyboards, and that was always a consistent problem I had. I don't have that issue at all with the Wooting 2HE. The way these work is through the use of magnets and the Hall's effect.
Water, fire, air, and dirt. Magnets, how do they work?
I am definitely not the person that's going to be able to explain all that, so I'll leave a link in the description below for how science works.
Science, bitch!
The switch has 4 components: the top and bottom housing, the stem with the magnet, as well as a spring that is not going to be MX compatible for any changing. It's a different size and non-magnetic for the purpose of having no interference with its inner workings. And the LEDs are PCB mounted, so in the event Wooting and Gateron produce more Leica switches of different types, you'll be able to change them about. These Leica switches are extremely smooth with the finest amount of lube as well, and with them having that magnetic core with it being frictionless, it's definitely going to outlive your eye with over 100 million presses. The Wooting 2HE is rather light for a full-size keyboard. Not necessarily a bad thing, but the desktop experience was a stark contrast to what I'm normally used to with the weighted heavy 60%. It's got an aluminum plate and a plastic chassis, as well as a removable USB-C cable that can be channeled for a cleaner wire management. The included cable is a braided cable, one reminiscent to the likes of a Razer or Corsair keyboard, but much thinner. I would say my biggest issue with this design, not necessarily that it's flawed, but it does limit you as a user to use a custom cable. Because this cable being much thinner and it gets routed into these tight channels, there's no way you're going to be able to use a custom coiled cable that has a sleeve on it. Although if you do look at their upcoming 60HE keyboard, you will see that where it gets plugged in, it's going to be on the side here, so that way you will be able to use your own cable. You see, not every game is plug and play ready for analog. Some games confuse the analog input from the 2HE with a mouse. Other games recognize it, but the UI can be spotty as it thinks it's reading a gamepad as well as a keyboard, so sometimes you'll see a mixed bags of inputs on the UI. Either way, of the games that I did try that were fully supported, it was super fun, and it honestly breathed new fresh life into these games I've long forgotten about. Gone are the days of lightly tapping A&D and racing game to try and minimize and oversteer with the standard keyboard static on and off presses, as you can gradually turn just by slowly pressing down on it, just as you would with an analog stick on a controller. The utility software is the brainchild behind the inner workings of the keyboard. You have 4 profiles to work with, one being a digital option if you want the features without any analog input. Aside from the usual RGB offerings in the Performance tab, this is where you will find where you can set the actuation point across the keyboard or individual switches. With rapid fire turned on, it allows for much snappier movements. Instead of having to have a large dead spot after your actuation point on a standard switch, it will dynamically shift and reset the actuation point, allowing for much quicker stops and starts on your movements in game. Tachyon mode removes the RGB effects and adds more horsepower to your switches, basically increases the keyboard scanning rate, and it results in key presses that are being much faster, going from 3.4 milliseconds all the way to 1.4 millisecond on your input speed. You can remap the keys with a simple drag and drop display, which is going to free you of having to remap keys to every single individual game. Same is the case for remapping your analog movements. In the Gamepad Response tab, you can customize how the analog curve develops as you key press. However, from my experience, there is no right or wrong to this feature. It's more of a subjective matter on your preference of feel. I myself opted for the smooth preset. Lastly is the DKS, or the dynamic keystroke. This is a macro on steroids. It allows you to set up the 4 actions on one key, which is insanely helpful for Fortnite players. So after going through all the software, I assume you're still pretty confused or overwhelmed by all the features, and honestly, count me in that group as well, because I'm still feeling like I just scratched the surface on what this keyboard can do. And I think that's its biggest selling point, is that it's not just a keyboard out of the box that you can plug and play with a new feature, but there's so much more that you can open up once you start learning the intricacies of the technology that we have at hand, and that really propels it above all the other keyboards out there. Now, this is hands down a gaming keyboard and a typing keyboard experience way down the list. Let's go ahead and give you a sound test. The spacebar is going to have some ping to it, given of its floating design chassis, but all the stabilizers are lubed, which is a really nice added touch from Wooting. And last but not least, no setup is complete without a proper wrist rest, and Wooting did provide me with their TKL version. I'm under the assumption they probably ran out of their full size, but they do offer this in full size TKL, as well as an upcoming 60% option with their board coming out in the second quarter of next year. And so with this, it's going to be silicone, and you can wash it, which is really nice because over resin and other options, you have to be more delicate with it. But it has this crazy like honeycomb design, and this honeycomb design definitely helps strengthen it. But I will say, even though it doesn't like match precisely with the size of the board I have, this is extremely comfortable to be typing on. It actually has almost like a soft surface to it a little bit, which I imagine will wear down over time. But as far as any gunk or dirt buildup or anything, this is all something you can simply wash away with your favorite cleaning chemical at home. Or I imagine with it being silicone, it's the same material used a lot for baby and infant stuff. You can just toss this right in the dishwasher. So this is definitely something that if you are planning on picking up your own Wooting keyboard, definitely pick up an added wrist rest. The last thing I do want to add is that the Discord community on the Wooting Discord server is hugely helpful, and the employees, while it is a small team, they definitely answer any questions on Twitter and other social media. So reach out to them if you end up picking one up yourself and you have any questions or concerns about it, as well as if you're amped for that new 60HE coming next year. I know I am. In the end, the Wooting 2HE is an excellent keyboard that takes advantage of science in a way that most keyboards are not doing nowadays. And the overwhelming amount of customizable options within the utility software just leaves you with a lot to play with on numerous different games. And I definitely do really love my time that I spent with this, and I'll probably end up sinking a lot more hours into it to see what else I can do with that software. But if you want to pick yourself one up of your own, there's a link below in the description, or if you're looking forward to their 60% option, the Wooting 60HE, I'll leave a link down below. They're doing like a Kickstarter model for that. So until next time, I do appreciate you watching the video. If you did like the video, please throw a like and hit that subscription button as always. I'm Jafer, and you stay safe.